Hi everyone, Pam Gregory Astrologer. I'm going to be speaking to you today about the first half of March and the new moon that we have coming up in Pisces on the 10th. Now, we're still in very fast-moving energy. You're probably feeling that. All of the planets are still moving direct at this point, and the energy is really building strongly into March and particularly April. It's really accelerating. I'm going to be speaking, as I say, about the first half of March in this video, but the second half of March is super strong because we have the Aries equinox, which is really the beginning of the astrological new year, and we also have a lunar eclipse in Libra. And then April is one of the most powerful months of the year, but we'll save that for next time. So as we enter March, we still have a very tight square between Mars and Jupiter, and that's a hangover from the end of February. And this is still very much fighting for beliefs. Mars is in Aquarius, which is about freedom, truth. Jupiter represents beliefs. It's in Taurus, so this could be linked to food, the agricultural system. It could be linked to some kind of change in the financial system, perhaps, because Taurus is about money and banking and that kind of thing, but there's a fighting for beliefs here. And then on the 3rd of March, we go into another aspect which is linked to freedom as well, which is Venus square to Uranus, and that's at 19 of Aquarius. Taurus, Venus at 19 of Aquarius. So check on your birth chart if either of those, either Venus or Uranus, are falling in your 5th house or your 7th house of relationship. You might be feeling restless. You want more freedom, you want more independence, you want more space. Don't box me in. I want more variety. This is feeling a bit stale, a bit deadening. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can download a free birth chart from my website. If you go to the link below, you can get a 2-part video series that will take you from zero to understanding these points in your chart and what it means for you in your life. And this is not a personalized birth reading of any kind. These are teaching videos, but you can use them ad infinitum. You can watch them as often as you like, for as long as you like. And it really is the beginning of your astrological journey, so people are really enjoying them. Then on the 3rd, also the same day, we have a semi-square between Jupiter and Neptune, and these are really the rulers of Pisces. Jupiter is the ancient ruler, Neptune is the modern ruler, Neptune, of course, still being in its own sign of Pisces. And this can either lead to some disappointment or disillusionment about the state of the world, how has it come to this? Or it can be a still optimistic sense of idealism, philanthropy. How can we make the world a better place? It can operate in a very positive sense. And then by the 8th is a really good day if you're working on a creative project, because we've got Mercury conjunct Neptune at 27 of Pisces and also semi-square Jupiter. So this is imagination, this is inspiration, this is big thinking, big future visions, big dreaming. So that combination is really excellent. Any kind of creative project that you're working on, the 8th is a really good day to use. By the 9th, we have an exact square between Mars and Uranus. This is just the day before the new moon. And so Mars now at 19 of Aquarius, Uranus at 19 of Taurus. And so this is really very rebellious energy, revolutionary energy again, because Uranus and the sign it rules, Aquarius, both linked to freedom, rebellion, revolution, every voice needing to be heard. So it can be quite impulsive, quite erratic. It can lead to more seismic activity, particularly both of these signs are fixed, and also because Uranus is in Taurus, and Taurus is fixed Earth. That's its symbolism, fixed Earth. So there's a kind of pressure building up that has to find an outlet, that just has to suddenly go, because they're not immutable signs that can adjust. They're in fixed signs, so the tension tends to build and build, and then so it can lead to greater seismic activity, aviation disruptions, because Uranus is linked to aviation, can link to power outages, cyber attacks, those kinds of dislocations, discontinuities. So that's on the 9th, leading straight into the new moon, which is on the 10th. Now, the new moon is at it's at 1 a.m. Pacific and 9 a.m. UK time. It's at 20 degrees 40 of Pisces. So let's take a look at this chart now, and I can talk you through it. Correction, 20 degrees 16 of Pisces. Here we go. So new moon, you always get the sun and moon exactly together. And I've set this for England. This is where I live. So ignore the clock face, ignore the houses. We're just looking at the signs that the planets are in and their aspects to each other. There's a real loading on this side of the chart, a real concentration of planets in those signs, and that's really going to continue, obviously, apart from the moon that moves very quickly, and the other personal planets. The outer planets are very concentrated, and that leads us into a particular situation much later in the year that I won't get into in this video, but just to note, that's very interesting. Now, this is the second new moon in a row of 5 that is a supermoon, which means that the new moon is very close to the Earth in its orbit. Now, we are used to full moons being supermoons, when we can see the moon much closer and much bigger and brighter, and it feels like we could reach out and touch it. So we're more used to those, but equally, a new moon can be a supermoon too. So that suggests, because we have 5 in a row, that again, the lunations are having a more powerful effect than usual on our psyches. Perfect time to set a new intention in the month. So see where 20 degrees of Pisces falls in your chart, and condition your intention around the meaning of that house. Is it the house of money, career, health? What is it? And always, as you know, set your intention in the present tense, that as if it is already happening. Otherwise, if you put it in the future, if you want it or need it, or you keep chasing it away. So 4 planets here in Pisces: Sun, Moon, Saturn, and Neptune. And Pisces is mutable water, so there's great sensitivity here, empathy, kindness, gentleness, a sense of oneness, connection with the divine, strong healing energy, increased psychic sensitivity. All of us are to some degree experiencing this right now, and that will continue. It's our growing sense of multidimensionality as well. We are going beyond the 3D, and Saturn in Pisces is contributing to that, of course, as well. It's wonderful for creativity, wonderful for your imagination, very linked to dreams, because Neptune is quite close to this new moon, sun and moon. Keep a dream journal if you don't already. Remember, keep pen and paper by your bed. When you wake up, don't open your eyes, don't move. Keep your eyes shut until you remember the dream, and then you can open them and scribble down your dream. Otherwise, it just evaporates. But really, very good time for recalling your dreams. Now, we can have a sense of overwhelm with this. The Pisces is a sign, because it's ruled by Neptune, Lord of the Sea. It can either be linked to flooding, so literal waters, and certainly in the UK, we have had just an unbelievable amount of rain. I've never had to check the tides before I drive out on the roads, but this can be an emotional flooding, an emotional overwhelm. It's all too much, or life in general can be, it's just all too much and we're feeling confused and overwhelmed. But try and use it, try and turn it to the more creative side, because that is really where the positivity of Pisces sits. I think also compassion. Compassion is a really big word for Pisces. And of course, there are many situations in the world where we just instantly feel compassion. There's so many horrific situations. So it is very easy at this time, I think, to feel compassion, to link together with our hearts and feel that. And quite right too. And also with Saturn being quite close to this new moon, it's a practical compassion as well. What can we do? What can we do realistically to help? And of course, things we can do, or like that simple 15-minute meditation on a Sunday that is running now. I'll put the link to that below if you don't know about it. But things like that are as simple as that, that's where we are using our compassion productively. Now, what is interesting here to me is that although Saturn is, a little wide for this conjunction, it's about 9 degrees away from the new moon, and Neptune equally is a bit wide at 7 degrees away. The new moon, the sun and moon, they are actually at the midpoint of the Saturn, what will turn out to be a Saturn-Neptune conjunction. Because gradually, of course, Saturn moves much faster than Neptune. Saturn and Neptune will come together in an operational conjunction March next year, and then through June, July, August, they'll be very close, within about a degree. They don't absolutely precisely exactly to the minute come together in a conjunction until February 2026, and they do that at, can you believe, 0 of Aries. 0 of Aries. So they holding hands enter the very first degree of the zodiac, the creator degree, I like to call it, starting a whole new episode for us. And I'll talk much, much more, obviously, as we get closer to that. But nevertheless, I think because this new moon is falling at the midpoint, and if you're not aware of midpoints, they are just literally, spookily enough, the halfway point between 2 planets. So, you can just do this very easily by eye. Obviously you've got to calculate the minutes exactly ultimately, but if you say, okay, well, Saturn is about 9 degrees from the sun moon, Neptune is 7, okay, so what's the difference? What's the distance between Saturn and Neptune? Well, it's about 16 degrees. We halve that to find the midpoint. That's 8 degrees. So we add 8 degrees to Saturn, and we end up at 19 degrees of Pisces. So the midpoint of Saturn and Neptune is right on that new moon. And you've got to keep a really tight orb of a couple of degrees when you're working with midpoints. But nevertheless, this new moon may give us a glimpse of what we might expect as Saturn and Neptune come closer, starting in spring next year. So, firstly, this is a very vivid memory for me, because the last time Saturn-Neptune in coming together from conjunction to next conjunction, it's about a 36-year cycle. So about 36 years ago, 35, 36 years ago, this was November 1989. And some of you familiar with history may know what that time was about. This was about the Berlin Wall coming down. The Berlin Wall. Now, Saturn is linked to walls, borders, boundaries, fences. You shall not pass. It's linked to separation, division. And there was the Berlin Wall was this massive wall. It was actually a double wall, and I think the length was 155 kilometers that separated West Germany from East Germany and really Central and Eastern Europe, the communist bloc. And it was a double wall, and it had 302 watchtowers along that wall. And the space between, you can barely believe this was, not too long ago, the space between the walls, the double wall, was known as the death run. And if anybody was found trying to escape from the Eastern Bloc to the West, they were just shot straight away. So it was pretty brutal. So when the Berlin Wall came down, and it was spot on 10 degrees of Capricorn for the conjunction of Saturn and Neptune, spot on. I think there were 14 minutes from exactitude. I mean, it was so exact. And that was the beginning of the fall of communism in Central and Eastern Europe. And I was actually in Berlin in November 1989. And it was amazing because people were jumping all over the wall. They were dancing, they were singing, they were up there with hammers of all kinds, and they were selling little pieces of the Berlin Wall. And I bought this chunk of rock from the Berlin Wall. And there was such a sense of joy and just absolute ecstasy as people flooded over from the east to the west and reconnected with family members and all kinds of things. So this was idealism made manifest, if you like. Neptune, idealism, Saturn made manifest. Dissolution, Neptune, of the wall, Saturn. In Capricorn, that Saturn rules. I mean, it couldn't have been more literal. The dissolution of the wall coming down, but more than that, the dissolution of the old order, Saturn, in Capricorn. So, this was really a sense of idealism, vision, and a whole new start, really, for that dream, that idealism. And it really was, because communism, that was the beginning, as I say, of the collapse of communism in those eastern areas. And so this is about making real the dream. One of the big themes of Saturn Neptune is making real Saturn the dream, Neptune. So we're going to see more and more of that next year. But I just wanted to highlight it because this new moon is at the midpoint. We may just see some seeds, some plants, and talking of some glimpses of what that may be about. And with regard to seeds, the dwarf planet Hyawako is exactly by degree at this new moon. Now, Hyawako is a creator farmer god, very linked to farming. We've got so many big themes about farming and food right now, as you are aware. And Hyawako was very concerned about having enough seeds for the harvest, for the next crop to feed everyone. So just with regard to this, and I've mentioned it several times before, do think about growing microgreens on your window ledge. Do think about getting a very inexpensive sprouter. You can get these sprouting devices. They're usually in a stack of 3, and you can grow cress seeds or broccoli sprouts or all kinds of lentils, chickpeas. You can grow all kinds of incredibly nutritious seeds and then harvest them when they're about 3 days old. They are just packed with goodness. So if there are any interruptions by chance in the food supply, as there may be with all the unstable geomagnetics we have right now, you've got something really fresh, nutritious, and good to eat at home on hand. And it's so inexpensive and so easy to do. So the other thing I really want to mention, and this was really quite exciting this week, was I've mentioned in previous videos, possibly in the Saturn in Pisces, those 2 videos, then I thought one of the aspects of Saturn in Pisces was to do with structures. Saturn, old structures, it's ancient. There could be cities, there could be temples, there could be structures of various kinds, but something old coming up from the seas. Now, just a few days ago, I discovered that there's a gigantic mountain range, underwater mountain range, and I'll put the link for this below, that has just been found. I think it's fairly close to Tasmania as well, but in the article it said it's off the coast of Chile. So it's underwater, but in particular, they're four gigantic mountains, Saturn, big structures, rock, that are beginning to emerge from the sea, Pisces. And this is really exciting because, of course, they will be, I would think, extremely fertile, covered in algae, wonderful for growing food. And this is very exciting because, as I've spoken at great length, as have other people, with Uranus in Taurus and Pluto now in Aquarius too, we are in a time of unstable geomagnetics where we may see some land falling away into the sea and other land beginning to emerge from the sea. And that isn't just Saturn in Pisces, it's obviously reinforced by, as I say, Uranus in Taurus, literally new earth, new land, Uranus, new Taurus land. It's also because of Pluto in Aquarius, which intensifies that Aquarian Uranian energy. It's also linked to Homer. This is the symbol for Homer we're going to gradually get used to. Homer, remember, linked to the Hawaiian goddess of fertility. In her fire goddess aspect, she was said to birth the 8 islands of Hawaii. From all of the volcanic lava, she was said to birth those islands and form them into land. And she has just recently just a few months ago, moved into Scorpio, again, the seas, the waters. So she is another regenerative principle from the water. So I think this is very interesting. Now, I don't know, it's going to be very hard to predict because Uranus and Aquarian energy is very unpredictable by its nature, as you know, which land may fall into the sea and which may emerge, but nevertheless, I think we're going to see a lot of that this year. Particularly this year and some of next. So as I say, I'll put that link for the mountains, the underwater mountains below. The other thing to mention here is that Mercury is in an out of sign conjunction to Neptune here, 27 of Pisces. This is beautiful again for your creativity, your imagination, inspiration. But also, Mercury is at 0 of Aries. It's on the world axis. It is in a very powerful place for new ideas, new thinking, ideas that you can bring onto the public stage in a very important way. And not only that, it is conjunct the dwarf planet Manwë at 2 of Aries. And Manwë, you might remember, is a dwarf planet that, with his wife Vada, was said in the creation myth to birth our cosmos, birth our Earth. Highest archangel, closest to the mind of God, a brilliant visionary creator for the cosmos and the Earth. And so this is very powerful as yet another signal for a new beginning. And they just keep on coming, these new beginnings. As you know, I've talked about this at great length in other videos. Mercury is also tightly quincunx Homer. So again, these new ideas to do with regeneration for the Earth, living in harmony with the Earth, living in right relationship, right balance. Heather Emsworth talks about this a great deal, very knowledgeably, bringing us back to harmony, to oneness, to balance. Very big part of Homer's myth. And we also have the North Node still very tightly conjunct Chiron here, this healing of any victim consciousness, healing of our wounds on a collective level, so we can move forwards. Super powerful conjunction there. And the other thing, just to mention as well, is, which adds to this regeneration, is Pluto is in a long-term square to Haumea. That's going to run all of this year, all of next year. So again, it's deep transformation and then rebirth, regeneration. You're going to see a lot of that this year. So the other thing to just touch on, we have Pluto in a very tight sextile to Mercury. This is deep thinking about issues of freedom, human rights, also technology, that kind of thing. And we're thinking deeply, and there could be powerful words, powerful speeches about those subjects. Now, we also have a growing conjunction here between Jupiter and Uranus. They come together exactly in conjunction on the 21st of April at 21:49 of Taurus. It's one of the most important aspects of the year, as I say. I'm going to be doing a whole separate video on this because it is so incredibly important. Because if you like, Uranus is strengthened by the fact that Pluto is in its sign of rulership. It's intensified, it's catalyzed. But this is already beginning to be operational. It's about 7 degrees away. So just in short, until I do that whole video, this is about new discoveries. It's about jumps in consciousness. It's about quantum leaps, new perspectives, Kundalini activations, could be new developments in all kinds of science, technology, healing devices, medical devices, all kinds of things, new discoveries about the cosmos. This is going to be very significant, but as I said, I'll leave the rest because this video is going to be long enough. I leave that until a separate video, which I hope I can do fairly soon. So, and just to finish off this half of March, and I'll stop sharing here, we have quite a feisty day on the 14th of March because the moon comes to conjunct Uranus, square Mars, and Mercury is semi-square Mars. So there's, again, this rebellious, impulsive, reactive, revolutionary urge coming in strongly. That's going to run all of this year. As you know, awakening and revolution is they are really big themes for 2024, as I outlined right at the beginning of the year in my themes for 2024 video. So really come back to, I'm going to be endlessly talking about frequency this year because this isn't a rehearsal. As you know, we are in the crucible of change. This is not a rehearsal. We must master our thoughts and our feelings on an ongoing 24/7 basis in order to make a difference in the world. You know, it's not really enough just to do 10 minutes here or there. It's got to be the state of being you are living in on an ongoing basis that's really going to make the change. And yes, obviously, if people are going through personal crises and loss of a loved one, then obviously you've got to allow that grief and that process to take place. But in general, if we are just being buffeted by the endlessly rolling crises that are being offered to us from the external, we have to get beyond that, because that's been going on for hundreds and thousands of years. So we really can transmute this energy. Think of the Pisces energy. Be peace. Pisces is beautiful for that. Be love. Put those post-it notes around your house. Be in that state of being, because you are infecting the world with your frequency. Even if you're on your own, you're feeding that into the collective, you're feeding into the grid of light, which is, all those galactic superhighways that Professor Robert Temple talked about. You're feeding into the water droplets in the air, the water that you drink. Look at Veda Austin's work that I often quote. We are masters. We are going to become masters of this. So I'm going to keep on talking about it. So you and me, ordinary people, we don't have to have a title or be an authority in this. What matters is us coming together in person or online in numbers to really make a difference. And particularly if you're with like-minded people, that group energy, as you know, is magnified. But remember what I quoted in my recent video called Another Ramble, where I was talking about the work of Dr. David Hawkins in his map of consciousness. He said that one person who is vibrating at peace, which isn't that hard to get to, 600, can counterbalance, I think it was 10 million, that's correct, yes, 10 million people vibrating at 200 and below. 200 and below is courage. So one person alone can counterbalance that. So think of what a difference you can make in the world. So whether you're doing it on your own or even better, when you come together and magnify that group energy, holding hands, connecting with our hearts, we really are changing the world, and we are dreaming in a more loving, compassionate, peaceful, abundant, joyful world. And absolutely set a goal that at the end of this, and I don't think it's going to be super long, I actually feel this is going to be over the next couple of years in particular. Set a goal that you are going to one day look yourself in the eye, in the mirror, and say, I'm getting really goosebumpy now, I'm emotional, I am so proud of you. I am so friggin' proud of you. You could not have done more. Whatever you do for a living, you could not have done more, even silently and invisibly, to make a difference in the world. Because we are in it. This is our evolutionary opportunity that comes around about every 12,000 years. Listen to the work of Heather Ensworth on the shift of the ages. She's a real expert on this. Know that we're moving through the galactic current sheet. Only happens around about 12,000 years, give or take 500. We're moving through the photon belt. Look at the shift of the outer planets, all shifting signs over the next 3 years, as I've talked about. Even the dwarf planets, several of them have a super slow orbit. Manwë, Sedna, Haumea, shifting signs in this 3-year period. And I think you have to go back at least 300 years, even just for our regular planets, to find a time when that happened before. And it was a time of great creative renaissance and blossoming. And thank you to Ray Merriman for doing that research. So really try and switch it. People say, okay, so what if I flick into, because of the news, well, switch the news off. But if you go into fear or panic or anger, just, don't tune into the news. But if we do dip into this, try and flick it. Find something simple. And I don't mean that to sound trivial because of all the horrors going on in the world. But if all of us did this, all of us would gradually develop a stronger default frequency of joy, peace, love, because it would become our habitual default frequency. So, if I'm out on my morning walk and I'm just kind of some anxiety about some tech issue or something, I will flick it to, wow, listen to the birds today. Spring's on its way. Boy, I love the trees. I love the trees. Has it stopped raining yet? Can I see blue sky today? I'm grateful for that. So the more you just get into this habit of tiny things, I have legs, I can walk, I can breathe, tiny, tiny things that you're constantly grateful for we gradually change our set point of frequency to be more positive and therefore more useful to others in the world. So I really hope, I know I talk about it so much, but I really hope that something I say is different this time, or really helps you get to that better place, because if not now, then when? We're welcoming in an expanded consciousness of love. So God bless everybody. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful new moon in Pisces. Don't forget to set your new intention at this time for the month and ongoing in the coming months. And I'll be back very soon with another video. God bless. Thank you for being with me. Bye for now.